Hi, I'm Daniel, and on the 30th of November 2024, Emilia Pérez released on Netflix as appearing in some film festivals and acquiring Oscar awards from it. In my original Yes Book review, I started with, do you ever just see a movie and tell several dumb discourses will come from it? While you could say I called the following months, one, it wasn't that hard to see coming, and two, even I didn't expect the extent of controversy that would come around this movie. Including being up there among some of the most nominated movies at the Oscars of all time, the Letterboxd average rating dropping from a 3.5 to a 2.0 as more people saw it, the lead actress being exposed for the Oscar racist tweets, and having what seems like almost all of the Mexican and trans communities both hate this movie. While the Oscar villain is a term that's been used many times before, I don't think any has or ever will reach this level this did. It does feel like the Stains' nomination has remained as an example of that the Oscars don't reflect audience's narrative that keeps being pushed. So, is it actually that bad? Well, not really, but it's also far from a good movie. I am not a part of the communities this film attempted to represent, so won't speak too much on that, and will try to leave the outside controversies till later in the video. I was always mixed in the movie, but originally felt I was more yo in it than others, compared to how I am debated with defending it by saying it was a 5 out of 10 movie, and was maybe close to a 6. On rewatch, some parts are slightly better now knowing what it is, but it's also made the missed potential and botched character arc stand out more. It is at least interesting movie to talk about, but that doesn't mean it's always interesting to watch and it can get boring at times as well. In this video, I analyse my thoughts on the film, and try to look back some of the controversy around it, now that it's been over a year. This movie involves a lawyer, unhappy with getting many guilty go free, who gets a mysterious job by a cartel leader to help her transition to a woman and fake her death. Years later, they reunite when Emilia wants to save her family and start to help send for victims of missing people cases. Also, it's a musical. This is a plot that will make a lot of people confused on what it is, but if you get past certain implications, I think it sounds like it could be good. I like this angle of tying this criminal leaving everything behind to start a new life to the trans experience. There's elements of that here, but this isn't a movie that even feels like it wants to tell a trans story. That can be shown in how the execution of this plot is a mess. On rewatch, I have to say I found the first act decent, if still a bit rough in areas, but better when you know what's coming. It sets up the plot decently well and having some tense moments that work. The scene where they reunite and the lights drop is such a cool moment. It's just the movie goes downhill from there. I also think the music isn't that bad, for the most part. The score can be great at moments with some great musical themes, especially in the ending. I can say a lot of things against this movie, but I will never say Elma wasn't a deserving Oscar win. Because that song goes hard. Music here builds in a great way and it's so catchy. And it makes a really cool sequence with the freezing on 4th track of Rita calling out all the important people in this room in her head. It just conveys it all very well. Lyrically, the songs sound well written, and are apparently worse in Spanish, but I don't think lyrics are that important a factor in songs. A couple of other songs are good, like they also nominated Me Camino, but a lot come off as fair songs. A lot are just 1 minute and then just stop, but I feel like not committing to a full song. And certain ones really don't work, which I'll get to later. I do really like the way it's visually created musical with the choreography and how it shows 4 tracks. The cinematography can be very stylish and cool at parts, even if it also looks bland and too dark at other times. It's a very inconsistent movie, jumping between quality and tone. I still have no idea if this wanted to be satirical or not. You would think it would be from the premise and the Rhinoplasty song, which I appreciate more about how memed it was, but it was such tonal whiplash originally. While I'm still on songs, the following Yada is actually terrible and the worst song in the movie. These scenes feel like it wants to be more silly, but it isn't really, as most of the time it comes off far too self-serious for anything. It's just boring with all of these personal relationships and business. And especially a boring crime movie, with that third act forcing these characters into antagonistic role. I got the interesting ideas are squandered, and it just feels like more could have done with this plot, and especially of the main 2 characters. To start off, I would say both actresses give good performances, that maybe aren't Oscar worthy, but I wouldn't include those in the undeserved nominations here. To start first with the title character of Emilia Perez, and it still seems hard to grasp what the movie is doing with her. This story seems set up to either go how she can't hide from the crime she did and person she is, even with this attempt to change, or have her able to see things differently and make amends as a tragic, rootable figure. This movie kind of goes both ways, but ultimately leads towards the former of having her act loyalty to Jesse, and in turn bring a consequence on herself by blocking the money. At the same time, it sort of presents her as some hero in the ending scene, and does a lot to make her sympathetic. Maybe the figure of Emilia Pérez respected more than a person, but can you really justify all that was done under the reason of curiosity reform masculinity? This plot was kind of trapped to either be offensive victim unexplained death by redeeming her, or to trans people by having her unable to change, so this went in the middle and offended both. I also time is spent on Emilia interacting with her family without them knowing it's her, but doesn't get much out of that. The boss baby family business unironically gets more emotionally out of a similar premise. This also gives a side romance with Epiphania, which I guess is one of the movie's better parts. I like seeing them showing weapons as a form of flirting, but her character is too much of an afterthought, who we don't even see find out anything, which is a big missed opportunity. I remember seeing this one joke about this ending like Wicked Act 2 or Wicked for Good, and that might have actually been a stronger ending to what was set up. Emilia's character never feels like it was properly got time to be fully understood, despite it being her movie. You might expect this to expand Rita, who has more screen time, but it's not. I personally was fine with stories how Daniel being supporting, purely of how irrelevant she feels after the first act despite being there. It's strange how it starts placing Rita as the protagonist we're introduced to, being a lawyer not liking it and Guilty Men Go Free with several songs about that. She does the job and Yata has no issue being friends with a guilty woman. It makes sense of her business relationship, but I don't get why they're friends any closer than that. For as great of a song I think El Mao is, it narratively amounts to nothing with a fought against all these people going nowhere. The ending didn't even shift the focus back to her as if you're watching a media story from Rita's perspective. The movie just feels like I lost interest in Rita as it went on. One plot idea that I felt like it was leading to is Rita using her connection to Emilia to start killing all these men and eventually going too far that Emilia had to stop her. Giving both characters a reverse trajectory sounds like a better idea than what this did. There could be several other ways to improve the story, but what's here is so poorly written and where it goes. Out of all 30 nominations, most are 5 if not one of the 5 best of the year, but adapted screenplay is one of the 3 musicals this century to get a screenplay nomination, alongside Chicago and Yayand, for a movie where that's the worst part. Doing Part 2 and I'm Still Here were Best Picture nominees that should have easily made out a fair shot. Or The Wild Robot, even if the Oscars stopped nominating animated films for screenplay. I'm rambling, so I should probably move on to discussing the controversy around this movie now. This movie was always controversial to some extent, but it mainly took the Golden Globe Comedy Musical Picture win and the 30 nominations at the Oscars for us to grow as the movie no one wanted to win Best Picture. It mainly grew with the caption "This Be Wicked Best Musical" attached to the rhinoplasty scene, but also a lot of threads and its controversial aspects. Some of it might have been overblown, but there's a lot of ways to criticise this movie and how it portrays Mexico as a French film with a French director that isn't filmed in or stars much Mexican actors. The Spanish use of the most common language is apparently poorly translated, and while some characters like Jesse aren't supposed to be native speakers, it still makes this movie look a bit incompetent. The director Jack Audiard describing Spanish as a language for the poor was part of that widespread controversy, but it was mainly Kaya Sofia Gascon. I'm not going to go in much detail, but the youngest of racist tweets from the lead actress, growing to the point that Conan O'Brien made a joke about an opening monologue, feels like the main reason that stopped the movie winning more than 2 Oscars. With international feature going to I'm Still Here instead, which had only 3 nominations compared to Emilia Press's 13. Despite being a nomination leader, it's debatable as ever attention to win, as a preferential bias to voters ranking all 10 nominees would have made that hard, but it did feel like it could. Now it's only mentioned in the Oscars as it never really broke out of that. I imagine some think it was way overheated and see it as a cult classic, but I'm not sure that'll ever be a common sentiment. While I don't like the movie much, I do feel those who like it, as it has style and felt partly experimental. It is very hard to Oscar bait, as an experiment that didn't work on me and handles matters poorly, but has its appeal. I do wonder if its reputation as a bad film behind Oscar nominations made more hate it, or if being Oscar contention made people who would hate it anyway watch it. I thought this more when it came to Yasir Sarat, which is a movie many seem to not like, and also controversial from what I understand, being filmed in the Sahara, which is Yan being fought for independent rights. I personally found the film amazing and potentially something I can make a video on, but it does unfortunately come with that baggage. While this movie is not anywhere close to hated, it only got 2 Oscar nominations, and it's not too hard to see a world where Netflix acquired it and made it a Best Picture nominee, which could lead to it having not that different a reputation. Anyway, this movie is far from awful now looking back at it, and me having an opinion might make me sort of a defender even if I had your problems with it. In conclusion, I hope you enjoyed my analysis of this movie that everyone might have stopped caring about by now. I'm kind of doing this film analysis more just for me at the moment. I have got other videos to make out soon, even if I took a bit of a gap between this and the last. Do want to spell videos of these parties to avoid getting tired of making them. The end.